Very good afternoon to all our viewers today. Today we have with us a very highly accomplished professional. He has been the Dean and Director of Henley Business School of Africa. He has also led MBAid, a not-for-profit organization that connects MBA and other business school students and alumni with social enterprises and NGOs, and he has been as a chairperson of Association of African Business School, vice chair, and the chair of British Chamber of Commerce in South Africa, and many more. Let us all welcome John Foster Pedley.
Thank you very
Welcome, sir.
much. Thank you. Lovely to be here. Great to meet you.
Such an honor. So you've traversed a remarkable path from pilot to entrepreneur, business leader, and now an academician, while supporting the Himalaya soil movement. Now, what key lessons from your journey have you implemented and continue to value the same?
I think that the best lessons that I've got from all of this is to I think try and center yourself and feel what you and really keep focusing on what you feel is important in life. I know that sounds very trivial, but we get drawn off in so many different ways that, what is really important to you? How do you come back to that direction as often as you can? You might go to and fro. And then the other thing is to have quite a lot of resilience, to not take things too personally, aim for the big picture. When you get knocked back, stand up again, try and develop some grit and resilience and a bit of a sense of humor, because I think you'll get far further with a very strong purpose and the capacity to be knocked off track and come back on track than you will by being rigid and dogmatic and completely dogged about what you want to do, driving towards one thing. So I think cultivate that and a sense of curiosity about life, and you'll do fine as far as I can see. Yeah.
That's very inspiring. With your rich exposure to advanced and emerging economies, now you've worked in UK, you worked in South Africa as well. How do recent global developments impact business and employment landscapes in these regions?
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Could you say that again?
Yeah. Since you have worked in UK as well as in Africa, and you have a rich exposure to advanced and emerging economies, how do recent global developments impact businesses and employment landscapes in these regions?
Well, as we speak, we're sitting in the middle of a global storm of economic transformation or chaos, depends how you see it, that nobody can fully understand or make sense of, not even the people who are perpetrating it, probably, in my view. So it's very hard to say exactly where we're going to go, but what we are living through is huge transformation. And a lot of us would feel it's sacrificing a lot of our ideals as well, the things we dearly love, climate, trying to get better understanding of climate science, understanding of social upliftment. All those things are going on the back burner of power politics and the desperation, really, to keep people happy and make parts of the world prosperous. That's a very little understanding or conscience about what's happening in the other parts of the world. So I think it's extremely hard to say. Obviously, we're going to be facing very difficult consequences in a lot of countries. Aid money has been switched off from the USA. Other countries are having to tighten their belts because of what's happening with tariffs or just general uncertainty. But in all this, something will happen. Whether we can avoid chaos and disastrous wars in the middle of it, let's hope we can. But it does indicate that there is a massive transformation going on in the nature of the world. Who's in power? Who's leading the world? What they're going to do? Who's going to be in charge, if you like, or driving climate change? Who's going to do that now? We don't have the same institutional bodies right now having the same influence they had before. But I'm quite optimistic from this that the people's natural capacity to self-organize and create emergent movements will build up too, because always in the face of an establishment, there's always a movement. It doesn't matter whether the establishment is left or right wing, there will always be some opposition appearing. Now's a good time for us not to sacrifice our ideals, nor to let go of our hope, but to think of new ways to come together. And maybe what this will force people to do who want to really look after the environment and make sure that our children and grandchildren inherit something really worthwhile and beautiful, and more importantly, that really works for us as human beings and sees our place in this world as humans who are part of nature. Let's hope that we, in this chaos, somehow come together more than we've been able to before. And that, I think, will build strong bonds. And if we stay determined and are willing to collaborate in different ways and have goodwill, we'll probably come together in ways that are going to be more helpful than we were able to before. And I hope that doing that in this difficult time will mean as if we emerge out of it, and as we emerge out of it, we'll come out of it in a stronger configuration to make more change happen. That's my wish, and actually my belief that will happen.
And in the case of employment landscapes, do you think it's gonna get affected, especially in the African continent?
Yes, always. I mean, it's obviously very complex. Employment means transforming people's lives and giving them the appropriate forms of education and teaching and learning so that they can generate value in some way to build economies and create some growth. And while I don't think that the seeking of growth is everything in life at all, when you've got people who are in great poverty, you don't need much growth to really improve their lives. And I think we really have to focus on that. The thing we tend to do quite often, I think, with people who are poor and people who are rich, there's a very unpleasant tendency, I think, for some people to judge people who are poor because it's their own fault. And I would call that povertism, like racism, if you like. And I don't really think that's the case at all. You only have to be in environments where people are stuck in poverty traps with lack of opportunity, with the cost of being in poverty, to see how terribly difficult it is to get out. And it's very easy to judge people losing hope or descending into criminality or whatever under those circumstances. But you have to understand that they have so little else available to them at sometimes that those are often seem to be the only ways to hold themselves together. What we have to do is educate, give hope, and give people skills that are enabling them to create capability, but also give them the resources, help them do better things with land, help them grow crops better, be more productive, preserve the land while they're doing it. Really work on lifestyle and quality of life rather than just achievement of the things that we think are surrogates for happiness, which are big cars and all the rest of it. And so I think we've got a time now to think what it means to have a quality of life and to understand that in the heads and hearts of those people who are excluded sits enormous capability and intelligence. Just because you're educated doesn't mean that you're gifted with an enormous amount of natural intelligence. You've had opportunity, obviously, it's been given to you. You've obviously done a lot with what you've got. And just because you are not educated and in poverty doesn't mean you haven't got an enormous amount of intelligence and capability. I mean, really, it all sits there, but it's not been cultured or shaped or formed in a way that allows it to be coordinated and work together to the common interest to produce a lot of value and build people's livings. We have to make that happen. We cannot continue to build a world with such huge separation in it that it inevitably inspires, differences and wars and whatever. We have to provide opportunity for people. At the same time, I think we've all got to do a lot of soul searching over what constitutes a life of quality. What does it mean to have a life of quality? Obviously, decent relationships, being in a decent environment, having aspirations to do things that are really worthwhile. And we all have the tendency, I think, to go off track. We're all have our demons. We all have our dark sides as part of humanity. Do we want to let that rule us, or do we want to be ruled by something that we are a little bit more proud of and a little bit more happy for our children to live in? And I think we all got to fight all our lives to kind of understand that none of us are perfect, and we all have these issues and dark sides. That's part of being human. But why let them run your life? I often think it's a bit like you might have a whole load of dogs on a leash, these professional dog walkers. I've seen them in Argentina, 15 dogs on a leash. If all the dogs run around, you're pulled around after them. But if you can harness the dogs, you can do a massive amount of power to go in a direction. And those dogs could be, our dark emotions or our attachments to things. Somehow we have to not let them drag us around life, but harness them and point them in a direction. And the collective power of all that makes you really able to achieve things. So there is a need for discipline and self-awareness and self-understanding. There's also a massive need to forgive yourself when you go off track as well. And obviously to make it up to people you hurt, if that's what's happened. Try and do that.
That's a great thought, and for each one of us to achieve that level in itself is a journey. Now, as we go forward, sustainability continues to be a pressing and sensitive topic across nations. As global economies reshape this year, considering the situations going on, how much importance will sustainability be placed on policy making and industry?
Well, you're certainly seeing a general trend for people to walk away with it in the mainstream, if you like, of business and economies, mainly because, and obviously it's not just driven by what's going on in the United States. You're seeing this happening all around the world, is that people have become more concerned about the effects of immigration and migration, of their own well-being, their own capacity to earn a living. The well-off are struggling with losing some of that. And so I think within that, you're going to get doctrines and movements of people who will be very disparaging of climate science, see that there may be technological solutions that will solve the pollution we'll get, and also people who don't have the same deep empathy for nature and the world around us as others who've been perhaps more exposed to it, being brought up in an urban environment and a very an environment that really values your own personal achievement, the power you get. Maybe it's harder to really feel for the nature around you. You don't value it as much. Somehow we've got to get people to value nature and what it means. That's part of what we have to do. What will obviously happen is with changing regulations and more promotion of oil and carbon-based kind of exploration and carbon-based economies, that the environment will suffer. One of the reasons people chase carbon and oil is it's such a cheap and useful form of energy. It's incredibly capable. It enables us to build machines, and everything we touch is somehow been enabled by carbon, by oil. Everything, whether it's the supply chains, the manufacturing, the plastics, everything else we use. And it's the cheapest and most effective way to give us incredible capabilities. Even if you look at your cell phone, the amount of carbon that's gone into that, and is massive. And so, but we are so hung up on them. They kind of rule and dominate and give us so much and take so much too. So obviously people don't want to give up, what they've got, and some economies and some figures will drive for the power that gives you based on fear or wanting to build a large power block. So we are going to really struggle over the next year or two, I think, to maintain our momentum. But frankly, the majority of people in the majority of the world require us to maintain our commitments to having a healthy planet and living healthily. We might find the battles much harder, but if you give up now, you're giving up at the one moment when it's most critical to continue. And I'm not saying you have to enter wars, or I'm in no way advocating any sort of radical form of violent opposition. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that what we need to do is keep reasoning, keep sharing, keep touching, keep making the facts clear, keep being you, keep setting examples of not to do things, keep talking about the difference, even though the opposition you may get will be furious and frightening. It's a very difficult time. Somehow we're going to have to weather this very hard time and keep talking about what we have to do. But the main issue is, to my mind, is we can talk as much as we want, but telling ain't selling. What we need to do is have a mass of people understanding this isn't an ideology about, the planet, or about global warming, or about saving nature, or not breathing in horrible air, or swimming in awful water and seeing so little nature around us, but to understand that that is the natural life we are born with. We can survive with less, but at a certain point, we won't be able to survive with less. The planet will rebel against us, if you like, by dying away. Now, that's my belief. And so, while we may have technological solutions that can kind of mitigate that to a large amount, I mean, the consequence will be huge. So I think an absolute purist ideology, you must have one or the other, is going to be a difficult one to manage. I think we're going to have to navigate this rather like a sailing boat sails into the wind. You go left here, you go right there, but always going in the same direction. Sometimes you get beaten back, but you've got to lift yourself up again and keep going forward with what we all know, I think, is correct. That we have to produce healthy food, healthy people, healthy air, healthy water. We have to have a balance of nature around us. And we have to find more joy in that than we do in driving very expensive cars or being able to be very, very popular on social media. I know
I
it's very
totally
simple what I'm saying, but it's what I believe.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on these points. Now, among all the polluted things that we are using and we are doing, we all are still doing a little small thing that, or our, uh, how we can contribute towards the planet, towards the society. Now, you are doing this with the help of Soil Initiative at the Himalayas. Could you share more about this initiative and its significance?
Well, it's quite new to me, actually, and I only recently got engaged with it, but I did go up to Lucknow recently to meet the wonderful people leading it, so dedicated, Alok, and met the previous First Minister of Uttar Pradesh there as well, who was very charming. And I saw some of the initiatives they're doing there. Fundamentally, it is how can they create prosperity for farmers, not just farmers, but entrepreneurs? How can we change their practices to maybe more organic practices, so the soil is not so depleted? How can we train people to do that, especially when they're so used to using chemical fertilizers? Because, one bad crop affects not just their livelihood, but their lives. So it's very huge risk for them to change methods from things that they know have at least given them the capacity to live and on a survivalist basis. So we've got to think about very pragmatic ways where we can bring new ideas and new methods into farming, which I personally believe will hugely increase the capacity for sustainable farming and quality products. Maybe not quite so many products to begin with, and maybe not quite so pretty, but in the end, better for you, I'm sure, and far more sustainable in terms of the soil, its health and its capacity to carry and bear many, many more fruits without becoming depleted and literally like white dust. And so when we understand that, I read a very good book recently by Georges Monbiot, part of it, called Regenesis. And his first chapter was all about the quality of soil, what it means. And I think it's a revelation for anyone to read that chapter, because it says incredibly full of life and variety and in so many ways that you can hardly believe there are so many life forms in a handful of healthy earth. And that's what we really need around us. So I was really impressed with what was going on in soil, and I really hope it works. What we need to have is more business help, which Henley Business School Africa will try their level best to help them with, helping entrepreneurs become more attuned to generating value and being able to share the value. But particularly, and this is very interesting, developing psychological resilience among entrepreneurs and farmers who are resilient enough as it is, but allowing them to keep practicing through, because we can teach people about the theory of money, but we've got to teach people to be able to fall down, pick up again, fall down, pick up again, because learning anything, and learning is a cyclical journey of you try, sometimes you win, but sometimes you fail. But the big issue is you mustn't fall too far when you fail. You must be capturing it early so you can see it's going to happen and move forward. And that requires a sort of learning capability, which we can help with, around active learning, action learning, reflective learning, getting people to notice what's going on around them, understanding what it's telling them, reacting quickly, and also changing the way they think about what they're doing more rapidly. Because it's the way we think about things that drives our actions, of course. And so we need to help people understand there are different ways of thinking about this that will produce different outcomes. And so I think Soil is really trying to do that, not just in the agricultural sphere, which is so important up there, but with small businesses as well. And we will help them by trying to help them learn quicker, understand how business works, understand how farming can be more sustainable, but also can generate revenue quicker, and how to not lose all your money by rash bets, but also to sustain it as well. Because frankly, running a business is a bit like farming, isn't it? You've got to, grow, sell, retain the seeds, retain the capital, reinvest the capital, get some surplus as well. So when people learn this in fairly straightforward ways, I'm sure it may help them. But of course, collectively, they have to be given resources. They have to be given government aid. They have to be given ways to sell their wares. They have to be given markets they can do that. They have to disintermediate middlemen as well as they can. They need climate information, a whole load of information. And it has to be given to people in ways that very intelligent, but not particularly well formally educated people can understand and absorb. And the big effort, the big mistake we have is going in there and think that because people don't have education, they can't understand complex things. Of course they can. They're living in a incredibly complex world. We just haven't found the ways to explain the changes they can do in ways that resonate with them, matter with them, and make them want to try them.
Yeah, I totally agree, and especially on the point of sustainable agriculture, because India is an agrarian economy, and there is a lot that we could do for the farmers. Now, as we conclude our discussion, do you have any message for viewers who would be watching now or in future?
Well, yes. I mean, I haven't quoted any statistics or facts, or I haven't given you any science or quasi-science. You can read all that. There's some fantastic books. To me, it's much more important to have basic, really good approaches to your thinking and attitudes of mind. All our minds can absorb a massive amount of scientific or other data, and it makes us sound extremely clever. And we need that information. We need to be very good at doing that. But beyond that, we've got to be able to collaborate well and tell stories with meaning that help people come together and collaborate, and to give hope and confidence to people. So I think it's more important from a leadership point of view to say that there is a possible future we can go to, and that you must keep repeating that message all the time. And you mustn't give up on that message in spite of enormous challenges and failures. You know it's right. We know this is right. We know that we need to do something about the planet. We know we have to manage it. We know it's the only honorable thing to do for our children as well, and for generations to come. So never let science or clever arguments or something cloud that insight. You have to protect that insight with everything you've got, because the forces that want you to not push that case forward, their greatest tool, their greatest weapon is confusion. They will give you quasi-science, quasi-confusion. They will fight you. They'll make you feel emotionally unstable. They will put you off the center. And when you're in a fog and you're uncertain, you will be less able to act. And it's in that uncertainty that other people find their opportunity. So stay very firm to your view. Be very confident. Don't overcomplicate it. It's easy to see. You look around yourself and say, how many butterflies can I see? How much is in this soil? What's the quality of our food? Are people struggling in massive poverty? Is there small things they can do, even growing things? Is there some hope we can give them? Can we lobby government? Can we change rules to give more resources? But just stay simple and straightforward. I mean, I keep a note in my wallet here from my trip to India recently, and it's got a here you are. There's 100 notes, and it's got a picture of Gandhi on it.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so I keep that note in my wallet to remember him and his inspiration and other people. And maybe one day I'll need it to spend, but in the meantime, it's much more important to give me daily inspiration. And I think that's the point. Stay simple, don't think too much of yourself, but don't think too little of yourself either. You know, be ambitious and try and make things happen. Try and do it. Just try. You have magnificence within you, and we really do. But it's your birthright to have that in you. Don't think you're glorious and special if you exercise it. You should do it. It's your service and your duty to try and do what's right in the world.
Well, on this note, we are all inspired and we would all try to contribute in our own ways. And it has been such a pleasure talking to you, knowing your viewpoints and your journey, especially. Thank you for everything that you've shared with us.
Well, thank you, but really the thanks go to you because you're in the front line. You're doing fantastic work. You're telling people what's going on. I'm inspired by what you do, and I would love to support you and people around you in any small way I can.